President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Saturday a draft minerals deal with Washington did not contain the security provisions that Kyiv needed. 3 sources said the United States had proposed taking ownership of 50% of Ukraine's critical minerals.
It's not in our interests today, not in interests of sovereign Ukraine.
Zelensky is looking to secure post-war security guarantees as U.S. President Donald Trump pushes to end the war with Russia. Kyiv has placed high importance on the need for Ukraine to receive guarantees from the U.S. that would deter Russia from launching a new invasion once a peace deal is reached. Senior officials from Trump's administration will start peace talks with Russian and Ukrainian negotiators in Saudi Arabia in the coming days. That's according to U.S. Representative Michael McCaul, who spoke to Reuters at the Munich Security Conference on Saturday. It was confirmed by a source with knowledge of the plans. The officials include Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who held a phone call on Saturday with his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov. They discussed the conflict in Ukraine, both parties said. They also agreed on regular contacts to prepare for a meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Trump, Russia's foreign ministry said. McCaul, who is chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, said it was his understanding that Zelensky had been invited to participate in the Saudi talks. McCaul said the talks were aimed at arranging a meeting with Trump, Putin, and Zelensky, quote, to finally bring peace and end this conflict. Zelensky was asked by reporters in Munich about the planned meeting between U.S. and Russian officials in Saudi Arabia.
Maybe there is something at the table, but not on our table. So I didn't see any invitations, envoys, and etc. from Ukraine to meet with some other envoys. And it's something strange for me to speak in this case and this format if before we don't have any negotiation between us and our strategic partners. As I remember, Russia is not our strategic partner.
Zelensky said earlier on Saturday that Ukraine would never accept any peace deals reached behind its back or without Kyiv's involvement.
German Chancellor Scholz delivered a strong rebuke to JD Vance on Saturday after the US Vice President attacked Europe's stance toward hate speech and the far right. Speaking at the Munich Security Conference, Scholz defended German political parties' decision to not work with the far-right Alternative for Germany, or AfD, pointing out its links to Nazism.
A
commitment to never again cannot be reconciled with support for the AfD. That's why we will not accept it if outsiders intervene in our democracy, in our elections, and in the democratic formation of opinion in favour of this party. That's just not done, certainly not amongst friends and allies. We resolutely reject this.
The prospect of talks to end Russia's war in Ukraine had been expected to dominate the annual conference after a phone call between the US and Russian presidents this week. But Vance stunned the conference attendees on Friday when he barely mentioned Russia or Ukraine in a speech. Instead, he said the threat to Europe that worried him most was what he called a retreat from the protection of free speech, as well as immigration issues. On Saturday, Scholz drew laughter when he took aim at the lack of comment from Vance on Russia and Ukraine.
Do you think there was anything in the Vice President's speech worth reflecting on?
You mean all this very relevant as discussions about Ukraine and security in Europe?
Scholz's political rival also joined the chorus of rebukes against Vance on Saturday. German Conservative opposition leader Friedrich Merz pointed to the Trump administration's move to deny certain access to the Associated Press news agency.
We would never kick out a news agency out of the press room of our Chancellor.
French President Emmanuel Macron will host European leaders, including Britain's Prime Minister, on Monday for an emergency summit on the Ukraine war. The hastily arranged meeting comes after U.S. officials suggested Europe would have no role in any talks on ending the conflict. Leaders from Germany, Poland, Italy, as well as NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte and Ursula von der Leyen and Antonio Costa from the European Union are expected to be at the summit.
The United States really is the big question mark at the moment.
Political scientist and Bertelsmann Stiftung executive board member Daniela Schwarzer spoke to Reuters about the shifting power dynamics.
We see that the United States wants to retreat from international organizations, so it is weakening structures of international order.
U.S. President Donald Trump stunned European allies last week when he announced he had a call with Russian President Vladimir Putin and would start a peace process. Trump's Ukraine envoy Keith Kellogg said on Saturday that Europe would not have a seat at the table for Ukraine peace talks. Washington had sent a questionnaire to European capitals last week asking what they could contribute to security guarantees for Kyiv and what the size of any European-led force might be, according to a document seen by Reuters. That's in addition to putting Ukraine leadership under pressure and asking for a deal on the country's rare earth minerals without any security guarantees. Schwarzer said it demonstrates the new approach by the Trump administration.
The message they are sending is that the United States is now the key player in the middle between the two conflicting parties and wants to bring this peace to an end without really wanting to be involved in the stabilization of the situation.
U.S. officials have insisted they will only settle for a durable peace deal and that Ukraine will be at the table. It was revealed later on Saturday that the U.S. and Russian officials will meet in Saudi Arabia in the coming days to start Ukraine peace talks. Dozens of similar summits have shown the 27-nation EU to be dithering, disunited, and struggling to come up with a cohesive plan to end the Ukraine war. Some countries were unhappy that the meeting was only for selected leaders and not a full EU summit, EU officials said. The French presidency sought to assuage those misgivings, saying Monday's meeting could lead to other formats.
M23 rebels advanced into the heart of the Congolese city of Bukavu on Sunday, dealing a further blow to the government's authority in the country's east. The rebels are backed by neighboring Rwanda and have aimed to seize the commercial hub since taking the city of Goma in late January. However, on Sunday in Bukavu, there was little sign of the clashes and bloodshed that preceded Goma's capture, and people there said they had seen M23 troops passing unopposed through central districts since the early morning. Some even took selfies with the rebels and welcomed them with cheers and applause. This video, verified by Reuters, shows M23 fighters posing for photos in the provincial capital's central Independence Square. While the situation appeared largely calm, more verified footage showed smoke rising from Bukavu's central prison. The Democratic Republic of Congo's government confirmed rebels were in Bukavu and also accused Rwandan troops of entering the city. However, it stopped short of saying the city was fully under M23's control. M23 is a well-equipped group and the latest in a long line of ethnic Tutsi-led rebel movements to emerge in Congo's volatile east. But Rwanda rejects allegations from Congo, the United Nations, and Western powers that thousands of its troops are fighting alongside the Tutsi-led M23. It says it is defending itself against the threat from a Hutu militia, which it says is fighting with the Congolese military. The UN Refugee Agency on Friday described the situation as rapidly deteriorating and said it has already displaced around 350,000 people. M23's recent gains in the region mean it has captured more territory than all other rebellions since the end of two major wars that ran from 1996 to 2003. These advances have also handed them control of some of the region's valuable mineral deposits. Congo is the world's top producer of cobalt, a key component in batteries for electric vehicles and mobile phones.
New Chinese AI model DeepSeek is drawing concern and excitement depending on where you are. On Monday, South Korea's data protection watchdog said it was suspending downloads of the app. The regulator said it took action after DeepSeek admitted failing to take into account some rules on the protection of data privacy. Officials said downloads would be permitted again once the app was in compliance. There was no immediate comment from DeepSeek, but privacy protection has emerged as a key concern over the product. Italy's data protection authority said last month that it had ordered DeepSeek to block its chatbot there over similar worries. Earlier this month, a Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson said Beijing would never ask any company to collect or store personal data in breach of national laws. Meanwhile, DeepSeek continues to get a very warm welcome in its home country. Chinese tech giant Tencent saw its Hong Kong-listed shares up over 3% by mid-afternoon Monday. The jump came after it said it was testing integration of DeepSeek with its Shein messaging app. Technology shares in Hong Kong have roared higher in recent weeks, in large part on optimism over the app. With its claim to beat or match Western rivals at a fraction of the cost, Investors hope DeepSeek can boost China's whole tech sector.
Shein is under pressure to cut its valuation to less than half the price put on it 2 years ago ahead of its potential London listing. That's according to a Bloomberg News report Monday. It said shareholders want the number lowered to about $30 billion. They reportedly think an adjustment is needed to help get the potential UK IPO completed. The China-founded online fast fashion retailer did not respond to a Reuters request for comment. Earlier this month, Reuters reported Shein was set to cut its listing valuation to around $50 billion due to growing headwinds. That was almost a quarter less than the fundraising value of $66 billion the company set 2 years ago. Shein had aimed to go public in London in the first half of this year if it gained approval from UK and Chinese regulators. But the Financial Times reported last week the listing was likely to be postponed. It said it could be moved to the second half of this year after US President Donald Trump's move to close the de minimis loophole. That is a duty exemption in the US for shipments of less than $800, which has helped Shein keep prices low. Industry experts argue the removal of it could hurt the firm's profitability and raise product prices in the US, its biggest market.